Hi, I'm Frank Gallo, president of Washington State Legends of Soccer. I've seen the huge growth of soccer in Washington since I arrived in 1976 from Dartmouth College to join the Tacoma Tides, who unfortunately folded after their only season. But I stayed and coached almost 30 years, starting at the University of Puget Sound, with my first year with Bruce Arena, then the University of Washington. The rest of the time I served at Eastside FC and other youth clubs, and now I'm happy to support our soccer community with Washington Legends. Washington State Legends of Soccer is dedicated to celebrating Washington's soccer past and preserving its future. What brings us together as an organization, as a community, and as a virtual gathering this evening is the beautiful game. We love the game, we respect it, and as stewards, we're compelled to grow it. Washington State is regarded as a capital of American soccer. It's taken many generations to create this vibrant, celebrated soccer community. As we state in our mission, we're dedicated to celebrating the past, but this program is the other cornerstone of our mission, preserving its future. We want to give every young person every tool necessary to fulfill their dreams in soccer, and we believe tonight's discussion will go a long way towards helping it. One way to preserve our history is to keep making history. Now let's meet tonight's super talented team. Our moderator tonight will be familiar to you all. He was the longtime sports director of Como Radio, a past Reign announcer and on-air talent for Roots Sports Northwest, and a co-founder of fourseamleadership.com. Plus, he's the father of a college player himself. Please welcome Tom Glasgow. Tom, the program's yours. I'll rejoin you at the end.
All right, Frank, thank you so much. Really look forward to it. It's a pleasure to be part of this event this evening, and we're really thrilled that you are all on board. We've got a lot of terrific topics to cover. Our program is largely a discussion about what it means to reach the highest levels of the game and what qualities to develop and what to expect in pursuing that challenge. So in a minute, we'll begin our discussion, but first, it's time to meet our panel of professionals. Our first panelist is from Kirkland. She played for Crossfire Premier and Seattle Prep. She has served as a U.S. under-20 national team captain, and she was also a captain of Stanford University's 2017 and 2019 NCAA champions. From OL Reign, please welcome Samantha Hyatt. From Edina, she played with Eastside FC and University Prep. She went on to become a standout at Santa Clara University and with the Sounders women. Her 11-year professional career included time in Germany and Australia, followed by 5 seasons with the Portland Thorns, where she won an NWSL championship in 2017. Please welcome Katherine Reynolds. Our next panelist is from Pico Rivera, California, where he was the National High School Player of the Year. He came north to star for the University of Washington and Crossfire Washington in the PDL. He's made 19 appearances for the U.S. national team and is a rock for the Seattle Sounders, helping them reach 4 MLS Cup finals and win 2 championships. Great to have on board tonight, Cristian Roldan. Next is a Federal Way product who played for Federal Way High and Crossfire Premier. He went on from there to UCLA, where he starred for the Bruins and made the U.S. U18 and U20 national teams. He's now played 9 seasons in MLS and also with the national team. And this season, he comes home to play for the Sounders. Please welcome Kelyn Rowe. And finally, our 5th panelist is from University Place and Curtis High School and Washington Premier. She went on to lead Washington State University to an unprecedented heights in 2019 and made the U.S. under-23 national team. In 2020, she was the number 2 overall pick in the NWSL draft and now plays for the Portland Thorns. We welcome Morgan Weaver. Great to have all of you on board. This is going to be a lot of fun. We've got a lot of topics to cover. I think at the very least, we're going to try to squeeze over the next 90 minutes about 35 to 40 questions in. So I know you're all going to be ready. We've got some assigned questions for all of you as we get things going out of the gate. So the first question is going to be for Samantha and Cristian. At what age did you realize that you were a better than average player? And is that when you first aspired to becoming a professional player? And Samantha, why don't we begin with you?
I would say that maybe the first time I thought that I could play at the next level was when I got called into my first national camp when I was about 16, because I think that ever since I was younger, I'm sure preschool me had written somewhere like, when I grow up, I want to be a professional soccer player. And I'm sure that has always been like a goal of mine and something that I had said. But I think at that point, that was when I realized that I might have an opportunity to really pursue that dream and make it at the next level. Up until then, like I said, I think it's one thing to say that you want to be a pro. And I think it's something that a lot of kids want to do and look up to that. But up until that point, I would say, I would maybe just say, but now at that point, I wanted to like follow through on it.
So Cristian, is someone who is a national player of the year, unless you were a late bloomer, you must have been standing out at a fairly early age, at least to people watching you play. Was that the case?
No, it wasn't the case. Although I received that award, it was for a high school, for high school nationwide. However, you know, how soccer has moved for the men's side and women's side towards academies, all the good players were playing in academies. So it wasn't really until my first year in college is kind of when I realized, you know, I could potentially play at the next level. Being able to practice in the spring with the Sounders really gave me hope, and you know, it wasn't really until then that I thought I had a shot.
Next question is for Katherine, Kelyn, and Morgan. What was the biggest change from club and high school to college and then the pros? And Katherine, let's start with you on this one.
You say start with me?
We'll start with you on this one, yeah.
I think for me, the biggest change from club to college was just the amount that we were training and the time we had to spend in the gym. Pretty much 100% focus on soccer in school, where in high school and club, I was playing so many different sports and had a lot of other things to focus on as well. But I think for me, the biggest jump was from college to pro. I think probably for a lot of us on this panel, we were used to being one of the best on our club team or in college, and then you get to the pros and everyone's that good or better, and it's kind of a wake-up call that yeah, it's gonna take a lot to make it at that level. So everyone's just bigger, faster, stronger, more aggressive, more technical, more skilled. So I think for me, that was the biggest jump.
Kelyn, what about you? I know in coming across athletes from every sport, they basically amplify what Katherine just said. That last jump by far is the widest gap that you're trying to clear.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was already bigger, faster, stronger than me, so I had to catch up a little bit. But I think it's, yeah, the training regimen and being sure that you're a pro. Going from college every day, you know, it's every day, but you're going to class, and now you have, you know, after 2:30, 3 o'clock, you have the rest of your day as a pro to kind of do whatever you need, and you can get lazy. I know that, especially in the summertime when all your friends are going out or your friends are going to dinners, and you have to be as cautious as possible and become a good pro. And it takes a little while to get used to that.
Morgan, what about you?
I think for college, from high school to college was huge for me is the weight room. I never lifted in high school or decided I should touch weights because why not? And it was really embarrassing actually. I couldn't even lift like the bar. It was really bad. So now just like realizing like lifting is a huge thing. So I wish I started earlier than college, but I think for going from college to the pros is just the speed of play. It's completely different than college, and just the momentum of the game is completely different. It's chaotic, I would say, like go, go, go. And in college, it's more like stop and go, I would say. So I think that was the biggest change for me.
To follow up on that, and any of you that want to chime in on this, you know, I'm curious, did you fully appreciate the time commitment, trying to balance soccer, studies, those early morning weightlifting sessions, still trying to have a social life, making that jump into the college game. Were you fully prepared for all of that? Anybody want to grab that one? Kelyn, let's go with you. You got a bit of a sly smile on your face, especially when I said social life. You kind of perked up there a little bit.
I don't have a social life.
Probably
I
college.
never did. I have more of a social life as a pro than I did in high school and college. In high school, you're gone away, even in the academies. You're gone away on the weekend. Twice a month you're away on the weekend when all your friends are going out. There's a lot of sacrifices that had to be made, and happily make them over again if I had to. But the balance of getting schoolwork done, going to practice, eating your meals on the way to practice after doing your homework, probably on the way up to practice or on the way home, if someone else was driving. So it's like I said, you find ways. There's a little bit of sacrifice, but it's worth it in the end.
Samantha, what about you? Did you feel the same way? Did you know what you were really getting yourself into?
I think people always say how busy college athletes are, and then you're in it, and it really does feel like you sometimes don't have any time to yourself. But I also think that playing ECNL during high school, it did kind of teach me some of the skills that I needed, whether that was just doing homework on planes or wherever you can, finding time to do work or take a nap or fitting in time to see friends. I think that I definitely started developing those skills in high school, but definitely the beginning of freshman year, you kind of have to figure out how to fit everything into your day. And you definitely do have to start prioritizing things, like maybe you can't go meet up with your new friends because you need to go get treatment, or you can't go get lunch with someone because you have to go get help for a class since you missed for traveling. So I think there's definitely an adjustment period, and from freshman year to senior year, even I think by the end, I was a lot better at my time management and my prioritization than freshman year.
Next question, we'll start with Cristian and Morgan on this one. When did you start playing soccer and where? So I think we're maybe going all the way back to, I don't know if you got involved with those little kicker programs, but Morgan, what about you? When did you first start playing the sport?
Officially on a team, I think I was 4 years old. And then haven't stopped being on the pink butterflies. So, I mean, my dad had one of those little baby carriers, so I've been around soccer since I was born because he was coaching. So,
Very good. Cristian, what about you? I assume you didn't play on the pink butterflies, but tell us who you did play for when you first got started. Maybe, I don't know.
No, close. I played for the Sharks.
Yeah, Sharks is a very common soccer little kickers type of name, right?
Yeah, so I started at 4, and I played in our local AYSO league down in California. My older brother is 4 years older than me, so the minute I came out, I was kicking the ball. The minute I could walk, I was kicking the ball. But officially, I was on a team at 4 years old.
Katherine, what about you? When did you first begin playing?
Yeah, around the same time. My dad was my coach, and it's just a small little team in my neighborhood.
Samantha?
Yeah, I think I actually went to the little kickers classes when I was 3 or 4. I'm sure I have pictures somewhere. But yeah, I think I had an official like 3v3 team when I was like 6 or 7. But my parents also played in college, so kind of like what everyone's been saying ever since I was very young, definitely been just kicking balls. So.
Kelyn, was there a Sharks squad in your past?
There was no Sharks, but I was on a team as far as I could do. My sisters also played. I have an older sister, and at her halftime games, I'd be running on the field, kicking the ball around as much as I could.
You know, when you start at those young ages you guys started at, you certainly came in contact with a number of people along your route to just kicking a ball for the first time to where you are now, which raises the questions, when you were playing youth soccer, who were some of the people that really had a significant impact on you and influenced you along the way? So Samantha, let's start with you on this one. As you look back over the youth coaches and rec coaches and club coaches and high school coaches, are there a few folks that stand out for you that really made a tremendous impact?
Yeah, I was actually fortunate. I had the same club coach from when I was about 10 to when I was 18. His name's Tim Reynolds. I played for Crossfire here, and I think he definitely had an impact on the type of player that I am today. Even just from a young age, he was having us try and build out of the back, I remember, and when we were very, very young, and he was like, we might not win a lot of games, but this will help you guys down the line. And it's true, because I think a lot of things he's taught me have helped me get to where I am today. But he was definitely a big influence on me as a player. My parents as well, because my mom was my first coach when I was 6 or 7 or whatever. So I think they've also influenced who I am as a player today.
Yeah, that much time with Crossfire, 60 acres must have been a home away from home for you, I would imagine. Kelyn, what about you, some of the influences along your path?
Starting out in Federal Way, obviously. So my mom was actually my first coach as well. She played in college, and before there was really a pro game back in the day. And then it was when I was in Federal Way, Andy Flory, and then it was Bernie James up at Crossfire. Bernie James was one of those very loud but effective old school coaches. If you didn't hear your name, you're like almost scared. It's better when he's yelling at you than it is when he's not. And you know, those three really kind of just shaped my game throughout before and get me ready to go to college and on to the pros.
Morgan, what about you?
I'd say first would be my dad, because he was my first coach, so he's kind of always been there, still is, coaching me to this day on things that he thinks I need to do better on, or what I think I should. As he's always there, and I'm always talking to him about it. And then I would say my coach at Washington Premier, Seth Spitall, he was a huge help. And I mean, Sam knows him because we played each other since we were like 10. But I think he just helped me realize a lot in the game. And I think something that I always will never forget is he always said, if your coach isn't yelling at you, then he's given up on you. So I think that's always been in the back of my mind. If I don't have my coach in my ear or saying something to me, then obviously I've done something wrong and I need to get back to it. So I think those two people are the biggest that's helped me through all the way to college, even to this day. I mean, I still sometimes will reach out to Seth as well.
So let me ask you this. You mentioned your dad, and you know, look, parents are incredibly supportive of their kids. Have you ever had instances where, you know, where your dad's saying, hey, Morgan, you need to do this, but you're getting maybe a different message from your coach, and how do you handle that?
I mean, yeah, I think I look at both ways, and then I'll just do whatever I decide is the best way.
Good answer. Katherine, what about you? Some of the influences for you?
I'm lucky that I feel like I had a lot of great coaches throughout my career, but a couple that come to my mind would probably be Randy Hansen, who's one of my coaches when I played for Eastside. I think he was kind of the first coach that really told me what I wasn't good at, and was willing to put in the time to work with me on those things. And that was kind of, I feel like, my whole club time before that. I just was always told what I was good at, and that was kind of a realization that I wasn't going to make it to the next level unless I improved on all my weaknesses. So I'm very grateful for that. And of course, Frank Gallo, who organized this whole event, give him a little shout out. He was great, a great coach as well.
Cristian, what about you?
Yeah, similar to what everybody has been saying, youth coaches really shape who you are as a player. But for me specifically, it was my little brother. I always wanted to beat him out, and we always played on the same team or against each other. And to this day, I have the privilege of playing with him here in Seattle. So on a daily basis, it's wanting to outcompete him and really show him that I'm the big brother, and I run the field. So for me, it's my little brother. I can't let him beat me.
So I have a little brother, and usually over the course of growing up, you know, brothers will, you know, there's going to be some of this on occasion, but was your rivalry basically just a fun one where you sort of pushed each other, or did you ever have those, you know, brotherly moments?
Oh, we had fights all the time, and it's just part of being siblings. With whatever sport we played with whatever video game we played, there was always an argument or a fight that someone was cheating or someone was doing something wrong. So it's to this day, it's more friendly now, but there's still that anger within us.
Let's talk. Another question that we want to dive into a little bit is practicing on your own. How often did you look with all the demands, and you're already committing a lot of time to your club team? You get to high school. You know, I assume most of you did both, high school team, club team. How much time was there, and how much time did you try to dedicate to just doing things on your own? Kelyn, how about you?
I think, you know, a lot of stuff on my own was before high school. And then when you're doing the double, the high school stuff and the club stuff, and especially when the academies start getting into it, you don't have as much time. And so instead of doing things on your own, you're doing things in between games with your teammates, whether it be a simple, you know, competitive game of 2-touch in between games, trying to do a new juggle trick on the field while you're supposed to be resting for the next game. Little things like that. I don't think I've done anything on my own as of late, just because we don't have the time, and when we do have the time, there's people around, which is nice.
Katherine, what about you in terms of sort of solo workouts along the way? Did you do much of that? Do you recommend a lot of that?
I would say that I did a lot of that, and I think that's a lot of the reason why I was able to make it to the level that I did. I was very dedicated to spending time on my own and time outside of training, working on things I needed to work on, and that was important to me in my development. And yeah, I would recommend it if you have the time.
Samantha, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree, especially as I got older and I kind of realized that there were things that I wanted to work on and improve that I maybe wasn't necessarily getting in my team's practices. I definitely would go out to a field on my own or stay after practice or go before if there was just even like if it was 10 or 15 minutes just working on something that I wanted to get better at that I knew we wouldn't necessarily get a lot of time on in practice. But yeah, I think for me, I definitely tried to get individual training time in, especially as I got older, like I said, and even in college, we would have pro time at the end of practice some days where it would just be 10 minutes and you could do whatever. So like the defenders would go do one thing and maybe the forwards would go shoot. Just a little time for everyone to hone any particular skills they're working on.
Morgan?
Oh yeah, so when I was younger, I actually had a trainer that helped me a lot. That was more in middle school though, and I would go with him like once or twice a week, and we'd just work on the simple ball movement, juggling, and then I always had a bet with my dad, how many juggles I can get. If you get 100, you get this. If you get 200, you get this. So I think that was a huge thing for me. And then after club and like in high school, I think I would just do things after practice. I mean, schoolwork was huge in high school for me as well. So I think I was always busy with that and also trying to do another sport as well. So sometimes I did track and then also had soccer after track. So then it was like, had no time to do anything. So I think if you have time to do extra stuff, I would just focus on a few maybe things every day, or when you have time on the weekend, it just kind of depends on what you want.
Cristian, same for you? Just more of that solo stuff happening when you were younger?
Yeah, however, with COVID, that was a good way for, I think, all of us to focus in on, you know, small things like kicking the ball against a wall, focusing on your first touch, understanding that you don't really have a person to play the ball to. So making sure you stay fit and technically sound. But I think that was a good way for all of us to stay sharp when, you know, no one's around.
I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, we've all been impacted by this pandemic in various ways. And I'm curious as athletes, as you tried to adjust, obviously you are in a sport that you can't play 6 feet apart all the time, right? You're going to have a lot of physical interactions and contact. as you learn more about what was taking place and trying to stay fit and wondering if your seasons were going to be held, I'm just curious how you juggled all that. Samantha, why don't you follow up on that if you don't mind?
Yeah, I had kind of an interesting experience with that as well, because right when everything started closing down, I was a couple months out from a surgery. So for me, it was a lot of frantic scrambling, trying to find a physical therapist near my house and trying to find like different ways to try and stay in shape without maybe having access to a gym because I couldn't run on the ground yet. But I think that just overall during COVID, I feel like we just kind of had to find ways to be creative. Like if you didn't have someone to play with, like finding a wall to try and get some touches in, or I would drag my brothers out to the field a lot of times to just try and make them help me or simulate different things. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting time trying to stay fit, and even just knowing while training and doing stuff on our own that nothing can quite simulate game fitness and playing fitness. So I was just also very happy when we could start team trainings again.
Kelyn, what about you?
Yeah, during COVID, I was in a small apartment in Boston, and they had shut down pretty big, and it was quite cold, so you didn't want to go outside. So I was lucky enough where no one was below me, so I could still work out in my apartment. And I also heard my upstairs neighbors doing the same, but there's nowhere to really like kick a ball or anything. I ordered a like a foam ball so I could hit it against my wall and couch, and may have knocked my TV down, but you know, it's fine.
They can get a new TV. They have great deals at Costco right now. Morgan, what about you? How did you deal with everything in that regard? And I guess, to some degree we're still dealing with it, but certainly in a better place than we were a year ago at this time.
Yeah, I think Portland kind of shut down for a little while, so a lot of the parks were closed. So I got to know my neighborhood really well by my apartment complex and the streets, just running, walking. Sometimes my roommate actually and I would play soccer in the apartment complex grass as much as we could. I mean, there wasn't much I knew Katherine knows that, what we had to do in Portland. It was nice though, because our strength coach actually sent us workouts where we could do them in our apartment. And I think the Thorns did an amazing job by able to get us bikes for our apartment complex. So that was a huge thing. I'd always bike every morning and try to go on a run every single day, or just getting touches even in the apartment. I just kick the ball against the couch.
Katherine, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I agree with Morgan. The Thorns did a really great job of providing daily training programs for us, whether it was on the field or just getting fitness in. So that was really helpful. Just kind of gave you some guidelines of how to make sure you're keeping up with the teammates. But yeah, I was lucky. I have a soccer field right down on my same street that I live on, and it's part of a school, so there was no one ever on it. So I pretty much had a field to myself and got a lot of training in by myself.
This is kind of a fun question coming up. Some players are known for being confident. Others are considered to be arrogant. Which are you and why? Or maybe you're not either. You got a little option there. Katherine, let's pick it up with you on that point. Did you consider yourself confident? Did you think you were arrogant? Or in terms of describing your attitude and approach to the game, something else?
Oh yeah, probably neither of those things, at least I hope, in terms of the arrogance. But I wish I had been more confident in my career. I think that would have helped me. But I think, you go through ups and downs throughout your career when you're feeling confident and when you're not. And hopefully everyone has their own ways of getting out of those times when you're not feeling as confident. But I think I'm my biggest critic, and I'm always pretty hard on myself, and I use that as motivation to always improve and work on things I need to work on. So I think, yeah, I don't really know how you would classify that, but I don't think I'm either arrogant or confident.
Probably easier to define a rival who's getting under your skin a little bit as one of those arrogant players. Cristian, in terms of, let's talk about confidence, because you cannot play at the level all of you play at without having some valleys along with all the peaks, right? It's just the nature of being a professional athlete. The key is not letting that challenge bring you down, but using it as an inspiration to build back up. So talk about the issue of confidence, and maybe sometimes when things aren't going as well as you would like, and maybe you've got media talking about, well, why is this team or why is this player in a slump? How do you deal with that?
Well, I think for me specifically, I'm a player that works extremely hard every single game. I'm really confident that I'll outrun players, and I will, 75th minute hits, and I'm gonna keep going while others, are gassed or tired or won't make that 5-yard press that I will, So I'm confident in that. Sometimes, when things aren't going your way, a tackle for me can get me back into a game, or
I think Cristian froze up for just a minute, so we'll hope that he
a simple 5-yard pass. And I'm not a player that's gonna break lines on it. I'm back.
You're back. Go ahead. It's kind of cutting in and out. So I tell you what, why don't you pause there?
Oh, gosh.
We'll hope that you're okay. We'll hope your signal kind of gets back in sync. In the meantime, Morgan, talk about the issue of confidence, and times when you hit a bit of a skid and you're not playing at the level you expect of yourself.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of times that I'm not very confident in myself. I mean, a good example is my senior year in college. I think there's 10 games I didn't score a goal, and my confidence was very low. And then I ended up just kind of getting it back, and our team did really, really well and made it to the Final Four. So I think just being able to talk to people, hearing different thoughts, and just believing in myself was huge. And when I'm not, I think that's when I'm at my lowest and not performing well. And when I'm able to believe in myself or have my teammates just kind of say a little something to me to get me back on to be myself, or maybe my friends or my parents. And I think that's a huge thing for me. I think it's big for my dad to say something to me, because he can always usually tell when my confidence is pretty low. And he's someone I really look up to in the game of soccer. So when he says something, I think that really helps me in my game.
Kelyn, to me, it can be such a difficult sport to measure for a lot of people looking in, right? So we can all watch Steph Curry go out and go 0 for 9 from 3-point range in the first half and go, oh, he's in a bit of a slump. And then he might start the second half by hitting 10 in a row, right? So you can get it back and it's very obvious. Soccer can be a little more challenging, especially if people, Morgan talked about goal scoring. Well, there's so much more to the sport, but oftentimes you might be measured. How many goals have you scored? Talk about when you've had some challenges, and maybe on the outside, people are like, well, maybe his game's a little bit off, but maybe you think, actually my game's just fine right now.
I mean, it's always going to be hard not to listen to the outside because it is everywhere. But you have to try and zone in on what you are doing and what you believe. I do think there's a line you have to kind of play jump rope with the cockiness and the confidence. Now, the cockiness cannot be detrimental, and it can't be towards others. It has to be towards your abilities. I may have missed 3 of easy passes in a row, but I know that 4th one's going to be made because I have that much confidence. It's probably over the top, but I have that much confidence that I can put that ball there. And when things aren't going right, I think it's something that I learned at a young age, and I still have to tell myself to do, is to simplify everything I do and to work hard. And like Cristian said before he cut out, little things can get you back into that little bit of confidence and get your head back in the game. It could be, a hard tackle. It could be a good run. It could be just running around like a maniac for 5 minutes. Whatever it is, it's some of those little things can get you back, and it may not be the top confidence that you had when you scored 2 goals in a game, but it's enough to get you through that rough patch.
Samantha, what about you and going through a rough patch?
I agree with some of the things that like Cristian and Kelyn have mentioned. Like, I'm a big believer in, if you maybe are going through a rough patch in a game or a practice, just simplifying things and doing like the little things well, whether that's a 5-yard pass or tackle or whatever. And I also think that one thing I've learned over the years is that like how I talk to myself matters, and how the difference that positive self-talk can make. And I know it's easy to say that, but then in the moment, if something goes awry and like your first instinct is to be frustrated with yourself. But if you truly try and take on a mentality of like, okay, next one, I like think that the idea of like, oh, I've got the next one, that mistake is in the past behind me. Just having that kind of forward thinking mindset is one way that I can get myself back on track. Like Kelyn said, even if I miss the past 3 passes, I know that I have the ability to make sure that this 4th one goes well. So.
You know, that raises the question for me. I assume when all of you hit the college level, if you needed, you had access to a sports psychologist. And if you tapped into that at any point, was it mandatory that you had sessions? Did you find it helpful? And as you have advanced in your career, just the importance of the mental part of the game versus the obvious, you know, having those base physical skills and the understanding of the technical aspects of the game, and how you blend and bring that mental part to your sport. Cristian, let's start with you on that.
Yeah, I never dove in too far into this, but for me specifically, it's understanding when you have a bad game or you have a good game, to have short-term memory, to really understand that you got to ride the highs and, you know, and figure out how to get out of the lows. So for me specifically, taking time away from soccer is really important. And, you know, watching other sports and just get away from the sport is really good for me specifically, and it's worked for me.
Katherine, what about you and the approach taken in terms of the mental part of soccer and confidence and belief and all of those things?
Yeah, I agree with what Cristian said for the most part. We didn't have access to a sports psychologist when I was at Santa Clara. But I think as long as you have people you can go to talk to and help raise your confidence, I also enjoy getting away from the game, kind of reset. Yeah, I think everyone has their own ways of finding their way out of those periods when you're not feeling as confident. So, yeah.
So Samantha, you went to Stanford. You're on 2 national championship teams. So obviously you entered seasons with extremely high expectations. That there is, you know, there's some pressure in that, obviously. Some athletes are better in embracing that. How did you deal with that part of that program where, you know, the ultimate goal in some respects was maybe the only goal?
Yeah, there definitely was a certain level of pressure at the beginning of every year, because that was a goal that we would set for ourselves. But I do think it's something that I learned to embrace over the course of my time there. And I think that the best way that I've learned how to combat when you feel like nervous or when you are feeling pressure is to just know that you've done absolutely everything possible to prepare yourself for when you get to that point. When I was there, we wanted to win a national championship every season. That was our goal. But I also knew that every single day I was training against some of the best players I'd ever played against. And we were working every single day towards that goal, with that goal in mind. So when we would come to the games, there would be some level of pressure or nerves of we did want to win, but I also felt that we had done what we could to prepare ourselves to get to that point. So just knowing that kind of would help ease the nerves a little bit. But it would definitely be something we talked about at the beginning of every season. So regardless of how the season was going, through the ups and downs, we would try and refocus on that goal.
Kelyn, what about for you, that sort of sports psychology angle to being a pro athlete?
Yeah, I used a sports psychologist through my 3rd to about my 8th year playing in New England. And I think it worked wonders. I was going through rough patches. I was going through really high patches, and realizing that, you know, all the highs can't always be that high, and all the lows will definitely not be that low. keeping things pretty low, steady, finding confidence anywhere I could. And for me, it was about setting goals. Samantha kind of hit it as well. You have that big goal, that championship, that MLS Cup, whatever it may be, but you have to have small goals to reach that. You can't just go and win that first game. That's just not how it works. So you have to have small goals, and it could be weekly goals, it could be monthly goals, it could be daily goals. At each practice, I want to make sure I hit, over 50% of my passes today. I want to make sure I run the most. I want to, whatever it may be. Those little goals will get you to that bigger goal. That's something I've used.
Was that little goal to big goal approach something you learned from the sports psychologists you worked with, or from working with the sports psychologist, that was the approach that you felt was best for you, and maybe you just sort of developed that as a foundational principle?
I always used to, every practice when I was a kid, especially, kind of play games with myself. I'd use my left foot for the first half of practice. It's still not very great, but I'd use my left foot. I'd try and score, or if I didn't score 3 goals in practice, I would, work on finishing after. But so that kind of translated into, okay, let's actually write these goals down, and be able to visualize it. So each week I don't forget it.
And Morgan, because as a professional athlete, your profession can at times, I'm sure, feel all-encompassing. It may, at least until maybe you get to a little bit of an off season, but you're still working on your craft during that time. What do you do to kind of take a break from the sport to sort of not only physically recharge, but mentally and emotionally recharge?
For me, lately, actually, I've been going on walks every day. So I go, okay, it's not really that long of a walk. It's like 2 miles, and it's like a really long time for it because it's downhill, uphill. But taking my dog on those walks after practice and just being able to be in the fresh air, I think has really helped me in the last few weeks. Just being able to like clear my mind, not really try to talk about soccer. And I think that's huge, is just not talking about it. It's hard, but at the same time, just not bringing it up in all the time 24/7 is very helpful. And I think that's been helping my game a lot, actually.
Very good. What characteristics do you all feel make for a good, very good, high level soccer player? And Katherine, let's start with you on this one. Are there some common threads from player to player that you've noticed along the way that, to be successful at a high level, you need these characteristics as part of the overall package?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is work ethic, and you have to want it. You can't, someone else can't want it for you. You have to be the one that puts in the time and the work. And yeah, I mean, it might not always go your way, but you have to be willing to keep trying until it works out. And yeah, so I think work ethic is probably the characteristic I would say is most important, but I'm sure there's a ton that everyone else can think of.
Along the way, is work ethic teachable? Is work ethic coachable, or you either have it or you don't?
Probably a combination.
When does the playing, right? When you all start, like, you're playing your sport because it's, it's fun. And then as the level increases and you get more serious, I'm sure it's still fun, but there, you do get into maybe more of a business element to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of like you said, like either you're someone that works hard or maybe not, but if like someone can teach you ways to work harder, or maybe that's just not a skill you've had, but you are open to learning new skills. So I think you definitely can teach it, but you have to want to learn it, I guess.
Makes sense. Cristian, what about the characteristics in soccer players to reach the level that you all have reached?
Well, I think work rate is going to be everyone's number one answer, but I think determination is another one. You have to mentally be sharp each and every practice, every off season. You want you feel like you need to come in ready to go, fit. and just wanting to get better. I think determination goes hand in hand with work rate, and you know, my answer to your question would have been work rate comes from within for sure. Like you're born with it. You want it. You need it. But also, I think if you surround yourself with people that want to do the same, it can really translate to that person wanting to be different, wanting to work just as hard as them.
Let me follow up on that. What internally, and then I'm going to ask all of you the same question. What internally motivates you at this point in your career? What drives you?
For me specifically, is my family. My parents came to the United States with not much, and they wanted to give us, my dad, I got off the phone with my dad earlier today. He said, you need to have a better life than what I, had and what I brought to you, so that your kids can have a better life than what you had. So that's for me, my inspiration, my motivation is to make them proud, and then make my future kids, happy, and making them have a better start to their lives than what I have.
Morgan, what's your internal motivation? Why do you do what you do, and why do you want to keep doing it?
I mean, I love soccer and I just can't see myself I can't see myself not playing it. I don't know what I would do, honestly. I have no idea what I'd do if I wasn't playing right now. So I think for me, it's just being able to be here, and in Portland, I've realized how much of a blessing it is and how well the Thorns treat us and the community here in Portland. So I think the fans really motivate me, and now finally being able to have fans at games and just being there and just hearing the crowd, I think, is a huge motivation.
Samantha, your internal motivation.
I would say too, similar to what Morgan said, training every day here with OL Reign, something that motivates me every day is I want to be the best that I can be for myself, but also just for my teammates, in whatever capacity that I can help them and help this team. That's something that motivates me in a variety of ways, both honestly at practice and outside of practice as well, because there are a lot of amazing people here doing great things both on the field and off the field, and that inspires me to want to be both a better player and a better person as well. So,
Kelyn, your turn.
I'll probably go a little bit different than most. Mine is just purely enjoyment. I think there are many times when you don't want to go to practice, when you're tired, when you haven't had a good game and you have to go in the next day. But even when those things happen, the second I step on the field, I start enjoying it again, and I can't look back. I just have I'm a little kid with a smile on his face, and that motivates me because I don't know what else I'd be doing with a huge smile on my face like that.
Katherine, can't remember if I hit you on this one or not. I don't think I did. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, not yet. Well, I just officially retired from professional soccer, so I have maybe a bit of a different perspective. But I think for me, when I was playing, it was kind of a combination of what Samantha and Kelyn said. I always wanted to try and be the best I could be. Like from a young age, I always wanted to make it to that next level. But also soccer, whether it was training or games or whatever, being with my teammates on the road, it just made me so happy, and I wanted that to last as long as it possibly could. So kind of a combination of those two things for me.
So what would the advice be to these players who are maybe just a little bit younger than you, right? They're right. So in terms of, I guess, enjoying the moment and enjoying the careers, Morgan just said, she can't imagine herself not playing soccer, and hopefully she'll play, as long as she wants to. But there does become a point where maybe you're not playing at the highest level. Maybe you're out in a guys and gals league out in Redmond and you're going for beer afterwards and you're playing at that level once you're done, right? Okay. But what advice would you give these athletes as they go through a course of a career, which, for all professional athletes does end at some point?
Yeah, I mean, when it ends, it sucks. But I'm sure you guys all know just to enjoy every single minute, even the parts that aren't as fun, because sitting at your desk all day is just not the same. And yeah, play as long as you can, and as long as it's still making you happy.
Now, have you started to, you mentioned sitting at a desk. Have you begun your next career yet, or are you transitioning, and how's that all going?
Yes, I have started, and it's going well. It's definitely different. I miss my team a lot, especially as games have started up. But yeah, it's good. I'm excited for this next chapter. I just started helping out a little ECNL team here in Seattle, and so that's been fun because I was really missing soccer. So they're like 12-year-olds and they're super cute, and so it's fun to get involved in that way. But yeah, definitely missing being out on the field every day.
That's good, though. You're passing down the knowledge and staying connected and influencing the next generation. That's really good stuff. I want to ask each of you, what was your biggest setback in your career, and how did you overcome it? And this can be an individual setback. It can be a team setback. Cristian, I want to start with you. You played in 4 MLS Cups, right? 2 ended the way you wanted them to, and 2 didn't. Do you want to talk about that a little bit and bouncing back from the ones that didn't go exactly the way you wanted them to?
Yeah, we've gone back to back MLS Cups, and we won the first of both back to back. So the second one I've lost. One was in Columbus, one was in Toronto, and the next year is what gets you. Everybody's still after you, even though you got runners up. And so finding that motivation in coming into preseason really fit and ready to rock, because you want more. You want to win more trophies. You want to be there again. You don't want to feel humiliated in the final. So that's where I'm at to this day. After that Toronto game, we came back, we struggled, and that was tough. But the very next year we win MLS Cup. And then this year we just lost MLS Cup. So we'll see how the year pans out. But it's been a great start to preseason. And, hopefully we have that run again, because there's nothing like winning a trophy.
Morgan, biggest obstacle, biggest adversity that you've overcome? It can be team related. Maybe it was an injury along the way. Does anything stand out to you?
I mean, this is kind of an off-season situation that happened. In December, I actually tore my lateral meniscus. And it kind of sucked because all off-season I have been in Portland. I stayed from the day after the rain game in Seattle, in Tacoma, and have been here since, and just training and just trying to get better, because I did not like how I ended the season. And so I've been here working as hard as I can, and I just I planted funny, and so I tore my lateral meniscus and was out for about a month and a half. So just trying to come back from that, and I'm still having not horrible issues with it, but it's just like kind of irritating a little bit. And so just trying to get my feet back and just try not to put too much on it. But I think that's just like been something that's just kind of a pain, but starting to overcome it, which is good.
By the way, I should know the fact that we have, a former Thorn, a current Thorn, and a Reign player, and everything's been, very friendly so far. So that's a nice thing. So with that, let's go to the Reign player. So Samantha, what about adversity that you faced in your career?
Morgan and I have known each other for a long time, so but
So you guys
I
are
would
good.
say, yeah, we're good. The Crossfire Washington premiere just became Reign Thorn. So I would say the biggest setback I've overcome, I kind of mentioned earlier, I had surgery at the end of my senior year. So the day after my last college game. We won the national championship, and then the next day I found out that I needed hip surgery. And I was completely blindsided, had not seen that coming. And that kind of changed my plans for the next couple months, because all of a sudden I was so worried, like, would anyone even want to draft a player who is like on crutches right now and can't play for 8-9 months? So that was a pretty stressful time. And then, the global pandemic hits, which just adds to the craziness and to the stress of everything. But it actually all obviously worked out pretty well, and I was able to rehab and everything and come back, and now I'm playing for the Reign. But I just think that just trying to stay positive through all that was difficult, and it didn't always I wasn't always able to take a positive outlook, but I am pretty grateful, because after that whole experience, now it's a lot easier to just be so grateful that I get to do what I do every day. Even sometimes if we have a hard practice and then we have to run afterwards, I will still think back to when I couldn't even run, and I will just be like, I am so grateful that I get to even be here feeling like death, and I would rather be doing this than trying to lift my leg on the sideline. So definitely keeps me grateful these days.
Kelyn, what about you? Anything that kind of stands out?
I was at peak of my game in 2017, and then within like a 3-week period, I had got sent home from the Gold Cup, and then basically season-ending knee injury, all back to back within the 3 weeks, and that was the toughest I've ever, toughest valley, you would say, that I've had to overcome. And like I said, I try and find enjoyment, whether it be watching the game, the practices, fuel and fire in that senses. When I was injured, looking back and watching the games where I thought I was doing really well before I got sent home, making sure I can learn from that. And I think talking to my buddies and talking to my teammates and help me through that as much as I could.
Katherine, over the course of your career, any bouts of adversity that you remember kind of shaped you in some way?
Oh gosh, yeah, there was a lot of obstacles throughout my career, but probably the biggest one I had to overcome was actually back in 2010 when I was drafted into the WPS, the Old Women's League. I was drafted to Boston and actually got cut after 30 days of preseason, which that was the first time my whole soccer journey, I think, that I had failed. So that was really hard. And then luckily I got picked up by Philadelphia and got to continue playing my rookie season there. But I think I was technically a developmental player, which they don't have anymore, thank goodness. I think I made $6,000 for the whole 9-month season. I worked at a diner at night, closed every night, I think around midnight, and then get up for training the next day. And within my first month at Philadelphia, I had a really bad ankle injury. And so after the first 2 games, I never played again the rest of the season. And yeah, I really questioned whether I was meant to be a professional soccer player after that, but luckily I didn't give up.
I want to dig a little deeper on being cut and how did you deal with that? How did you process? Who do you recall who you called when you got that news, who you turned to? Who are the people that gave you like, hey, it's not over? Who was trying to build that confidence back up in you?
Definitely my parents. They were the first ones I called, and yeah, I let myself be pretty upset for a few hours, but as soon as I got a call from the Philadelphia coach, I was ready to get on the plane the next day and keep going. So yeah, it was tough, but luckily I had people picking me up.
Well, if you'd known me at that time, I could have given you great examples, having gone through it many times at a much younger age myself. So the whole cutting process, I'm glad it worked out for you, obviously. So we are now going to turn to questions that we've received from the folks who are hopefully enjoying the webinar. They've put these questions to you folks, so we're going to get to those, and we're going to get through as many as we can. So the first question is, outside of club training, what did you find most beneficial to prepare for college and or professional soccer? Does anyone want to lead us off in that regard? You can just hold your hand up and we'll go to you if you've got any insight on that one, or I'll just call on somebody. Cristian, you're the winner this time. So again, outside of club training, what did you find most beneficial to get ready for club and or professional soccer?
I think for me, mentally understanding that it's going to be more physical and realizing that you have to use your body in a much smarter way, and your touches have to be a lot cleaner because you'll get crunched in college. So having that mindset, understanding that you may get hit, that you have to use your body better, and focusing on your first touch so that you have more time will help you overall. But you know, we talked about weights and all that. I did 3 pull-ups my freshman year in college. I was the worst. And now I'm going into my 7th year. So you don't have to be strong, just be smart.
Are you up to 4 pull-ups yet?
I actually did, I think 17 these days.
Yeah.
I maxed out at 17. So I've improved. I
can do 17 in a week, so be proud, man. That's a good number. Morgan, what about you in terms of beyond club training or you know, playing in high school? What did you find benefited you most in terms of moving on to play collegiately and then eventually professionally?
I think for me mentally, going into college, I was telling myself, you know, don't look that you're going to start right away. It's a completely different program. You don't really know the coaches. I mean, you talk to them, but you personally don't know them. You don't know anyone on the team. You're just starting off. So I think for me was just don't go in there, do the best you can, and don't expect to start. But then once you get there, try to make yourself think that you're the best. Honestly, I think that helped me a lot. I went in there and was like, no, I'm going to start now. And after my second practice, I told myself, no, I'm going to make myself start. I'm going to be the best I can be, and I'm going to beat out these players. And I think that really helped and pushed myself because I tried to motivate myself that way. And I think that also helped me when I came to pro because I did the same thing. I'm not going to start. You never know what's going to happen. And can we beat out these players? And I mean, still to this day, it's a competition every single day. And I think that's the best thing. I think coaches that make it a competition and make you prove a point that you should be the starter is huge, because I don't think it should be just given. I think if you have an off practice, then maybe the person that's having a better practice should get the opportunity instead of you, even though you're the starter. That doesn't mean you're just the person starting. I think that the person behind you is coming, and so you better be ready.
You know, this leads me to, this is a Tom question, not a participant question, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about the recruiting process. You know, what would be the best, what did you learn that you found most valuable going through that you could share with, you know, we might have some younger players who are watching who are maybe on the verge of getting recruited, or parents of potential recruits. What is the most valuable thing they need to know about being recruited, whether it's D1, D2, D3, it doesn't matter. They're all going to have these interactions where, you know, a coach or coaches are going to try to convince them to come play for us. Kelyn, what were some of your big takeaways as you went through being recruited?
I remember, you know, I was going to go on away on a weekend, and I would email 20, 25 coaches in the program and say, hey, I'm going to be playing here at this time on this field. This is my number. Please come watch me. And I did that every weekend I went away, from freshman year in high school until I signed a contract, or verbally, you know, signed a contract. So I put, you know, somewhat put the work in. These are the top 10 schools. Okay, here's the next 10, and maybe some 5 that are local because my parents wanted me to. You know, and you send those out every time. And biggest thing for me is if you have one bad game, the coaches will see that, and you still send it again. And don't be embarrassed. You make sure you send that email again and say, I'm playing again, please come watch me. And you continuously do that until someone gives you a call. And you know, don't burn any bridges. Someone comes and offers you, you know, hey, can you come to our camp? Can you do whatever, or, you know, we'll come watch you play. You email back saying thank you. You be a good, kind person, and show them the character that you are as well, because that goes a long way.
Samantha, what about you? Did you have any takeaways as you look back on being recruited? Now, obviously, if you ended up at Stanford, you had a number of schools, you know, texting, calling, knocking on your door.
I actually had a bit of an interesting experience just because I actually did my freshman year at Boston College and then transferred to Stanford. And so I kind of have a new perspective as a result of that. And I just think in terms of like the recruiting process, when it's time to decide like what school you want to go to, something that I think is really important to consider is if you're able to go visit and like meet with people on the team, I think that the vibes of the team is actually very important, because if you are going to play sport, like you spend so much time with these people like every single day, and they're kind of going to be your community within the greater community of the school. So I just think it's really important to consider when you're trying to decide where to go, because I know it's a huge decision and you're making it really young and it can feel like a lot, but just to consider the importance of how you felt just like talking to players on the team and like their experiences, because at the end of the day, you could be at a really great school, but the players and like relationships that you have with your teammates are going to be the ones that ultimately reflect, I think, at least in my experience, your overall collegiate experience. So my advice would just definitely be to consider the team and like how you like those players and how they interact together when trying to decide where to go.
You know, I've always heard athletes, look, you're obviously at the level that all of you played at, you're looking for a program that is the ideal fit for you, but there's also this education element that I know is very important as well. So, you know, I've always heard people say, well, make sure that you're picking a university or a college that if your career ended for whatever reason, you would be happy to continue at that university. And I'm wondering how realistic that is. And is that something that you considered as you were picking your school? Katherine, what about you?
Yeah, that was really important to me. I think you always have to think about, what if soccer was taken away from me for an injury or for any other reason? Would you still be happy at the school that you went to? And so yeah, I definitely took that into consideration. I think for me, with all my final options, I made a lot of pros and cons lists and just made sure that the school I ended up going to was checking off most of the boxes that I was looking for, both soccer-wise and academics, and everything else I was looking for in my college experience.
Morgan, here's another question from one of our folks. The importance of speed and strength in soccer. You have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, if I could have lifted weights earlier, I think I would have, because I think it is huge in college and coming into the pros. Everyone's faster, stronger. And I think for me, speed is a huge thing. And I literally did not know how to run. I looked like crazy. I did not understand. I looked like a gazelle out there. I didn't have form or anything. Still don't have the best form, but working on it. So I think just being able to get maybe with a running coach or with someone that can help you on the form, I think is huge. And doing track my senior year of high school, I think really helped kind of understanding the form, and I just continue to work on it. And even today with our strength coach Tom, I still talk to him about it, and he's actually really helped me a lot. So I think it's a huge thing for anyone.
What does a typical game day look like for you, and what do you do to prepare for game day? Cristian, let's start with you on that one.
I like to have my omelet, you know, with avocado in the morning. Like to have my little coffee. I get into my Normatex, watch some soccer, and then I'll go for like a quick walk just to get my legs stretched out. And then I'll have like a sandwich, you guys are probably gonna laugh at me, but I like tuna sandwiches. And so that will be like my pregame meal. And what I like to do personally is watch YouTube videos on the opposing player. And like, so I'll just focus on like, say, Diego Valeri, for example, at Portland, and just, you know, like understand, like, I'm going to be facing him and get into that mindset where I'm not going to let him impact the game.
So I assume you just described when you have a night game. Otherwise, you've got some really busy mornings getting ready for that afternoon kickoff, correct?
Correct.
Do you prefer day games or night games? Does it matter to you when you play? Do you feel more comfortable with one start time versus another?
I prefer night games personally. Just playing under the lights is something about it. It's just way better. And I also do not like playing in heat or humidity, and maybe that's why I'm here in Seattle, right?
There you go. It's a good call. We got a good week ahead there. We got to embrace it. You know, soccer's getting back going, and the weather's going to cooperate. Samantha, what about you? Can you describe a typical game day for us?
Yeah, some of the things are actually pretty similar to Cristian's. I'm a big fan of getting up and like moving around in some way, whether that's a walk. I also like coffee, so sometimes a morning walk and coffee, or walking to go get coffee, some combination. And this is also assuming for night game. And then usually in the afternoon, I'll have my pregame meal. And then I like to get to the locker room pretty early, and just sit for a little bit, even before the time where we have to be at the locker room by a certain time. So I usually like to go and just sit in my chair and like even just listen to music, kind of just get in the right mindset before like the kind of hectic pregame, once everyone's in the locker room going starts. So.
And I'll ask any of you to raise your hand to this question. Do any of you have an unusual superstition? And I'm not talking about Cristian's omelet. I'm a big omelet guy. By the way, we all love the tuna fish sandwich. It's the people who aren't eating the tuna at the time. They don't like you eating the tuna fish sandwich. Keep rolling with the tuna. Okay, Cristian, what's your superstition?
I always wear my left sock on my right foot and my right sock on my left foot.
It's that kind of radical approach, which is why you got to where you are. Very nice. I like that. I do that by accident. I'm just too lazy to switch them over once I realize it. That's the only thing. Anybody else? Anybody else got a superstition they want to tell us about? I should add that you want to tell us about. All right. Hesitation there. Hey, Morgan, let me ask you this one. What advice would you give to freshman college soccer players who aren't getting playing time? How do you stay confident?
I think personally, I actually have gone through this with some of my friends that I've tried to help get more confidence when they weren't playing. And my biggest thing was having a conversation with the coach and just asking what the coaches thought that they needed to do better or what things they should work on. Watching film, I think that was a huge thing for me my freshman year, is I really got into film and broke it down and watched practice film, game film, and just tried to understand the game a little bit better. And so, I mean, I still continue to do that today. I think that was a huge thing. So maybe just talking to your coach and asking what they think that you need to do better, and just watching film on yourself and maybe the player that's in that position and see what they're doing better or what they're doing that you can try to improve on as well.
Next question. Were you a multi-sport athlete growing up? And if so, when did you specialize in soccer only? This is a huge question, not only in soccer, pick a sport, the issue of specialization. You know, when should a young person go all in? What are the benefits of that? What's detrimental in terms of making that decision? You know, you can talk to a number of coaches in a number of sports, and some will sing the virtues of that variety. You know, others will say, you know, the sooner you can make the call, the better. Katherine, what are your thoughts on specialization and when or if that call should be made along the way?
I definitely played a ton of different sports growing up all through high school. So the first time I only focused on soccer was college, actually. And I think, I mean, everyone is different, but I'm really thankful that I did get the opportunity to play all the different sports, because they were fun, and I think they can actually, you know, I also ran track, and that can benefit you in soccer and you know, tennis and basketball and all the other sports. It's good to cross train and get different experiences and play with different teammates. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's right for some people to specialize at an earlier age, but for me, I'm really glad that I did not.
Kelyn, what about you?
I'm very similar. I played everything I could growing up, and I don't think I've stopped. I mean, I've gone and, you know, played basketball, shot hoops, which obviously not very good, but I did it anyways. It's a lot of fun for me. And I miss playing ping pong in the locker room. It's like Cristian said earlier, you know, you have to find a way to get away from the game a little bit, and still be active is a great thing to do. So I love just playing. And like I said, I'm a little kid, so I love playing.
Samantha, what about you? Did you make a call at some point along the way and said, from this point on, this is my sport? You know, it's interesting. I've run into a number of athletes. Guy I know, Bill Kruger, you may know his name. Bill used to pitch in the big leagues, works on Mariners broadcasts, had a very nice 13-year career as a Major League Baseball player, but the sport that he was passionate about was basketball. And it was basketball that got him to college, but it was baseball that got him to the professional level. Samantha, what about you? Did you feel at any point you had to make a decision in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always knew soccer was what I wanted to do. Like, even when I was playing other sports, I knew that I would ultimately end up doing soccer and like pursuing that. So it was pretty natural logistical decision for me once I got to high school. Between our ECNL schedule, I played basketball for a couple years, but once I got to high school, I just couldn't juggle it all. So then when it came down to it, obviously I picked soccer. But I agree. I think it's good to play other sports, just as people have mentioned, for cross training and just because it's fun to be able to stay active and be competitive, but in something that's not the same sport that you're doing every day.
Okay, the next one, Morgan, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm giving you a little bit of warning here. This is a great question. What's the best local club, non-academy, to help me become a pro footballer? Go ahead, have at it. You
All
want
right,
to
Washington Premier.
Crossfire, East Side, any go.
Washington Premier.
Okay. Sam, do you have something to say about that?
Crossfire forever, but also I don't know if Rain Academy counts. That's probably an academy, but
Maybe depends on where you live.
That is helpful.
true. Whatever
Well,
your
Katherine,
parents can get you to.
yeah. Well, Katherine, you've just started coaching. What would your advice be to a young person in terms of, you know, we all know when the tryout season is, right? You'll go to East Side tryout, you'll go to Crossfire tryout, you go to, you know, wherever, but certainly location is part of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't give any advice because I don't even understand how the club system works these days. It is so different from when I played. There was like P1, P2, P3, and like I don't understand any of what's happening these days. So I am not the one to ask.
I'm with you on that. Anybody want to chime in with any advice beyond Samantha and Morgan?
I think everyone should just go bombard Katherine's team. Everyone just go try out for Katherine's
Boom.
team. No matter what your
Very
age
nice.
is, she won't figure it out. Just go try out for Katherine's team.
And that is how you build a powerhouse, just like that. Way to go. Kelyn, with the recruiting there for Katherine. That's good stuff.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
She
Yeah,
paid
not
me
bad.
at the table.
Yeah, a little finder's fee. Why not? How much time of practice a week do you think a player should spend practicing or playing soccer? So I think we're talking younger ages. Like, is there, you know, if the question is how much is too much, is there a too much? Cristian, what do you think?
I mean, every kid is different. You know, every player is different. But for me personally, I played for high school and club, so sometimes I would have like double days. You know, training at 3 o'clock and training at 6 o'clock, which is crazy to think about now. But at the time, it was tolerable. It was, you were able to deal with it, and you stayed fit. So I don't know. I don't think there's an exact time, but I would say when you're on the field to really focus and don't be out there just to be out there, because then you stop having fun. You don't appreciate, being out there and the time and the coach's time. So when you're out there, really focus in and apply yourself and try to get better when you're out on the field.
The next question basically is there a recommended time, I guess, age for a player to make the jump from rec to club? Now, some of that'll be talent based, of course. Samantha, do you have any thoughts on that? Like a good age to go from, the sort of introductory, you've been playing some rec soccer and now you're maybe looking at taking a bit of a step up?
I don't know if I could say there's like a ideal age, but I just think it depends on what you want out of it. And I think that if you're trying to progress to the next level, I just think trying to find the best training environment and the best team that you can get on, and that way you can be challenged and improve in training. So I guess, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if there's a specific age I would say, but if you are thinking you want to play in college or have a career, then I think you need to try and find the best team like in your area that you can get to and train with them. So
as you all know, and it's great, we're starting to get a limited number of fans back in sporting events. Kelyn, what was it like playing with no fans?
Oh,
Describe
imagine
that.
your games when you were 10 years old and it was just your family screaming, and now it's just your coach.
Yeah.
It was pin drops. It was really awkward. I think we're somewhat used to it because we have played practice games before. We have played preseason games where there are no fans. But it is weird, and it's the last about 15 minutes that really brings out not the real pros, I would say, but the ones that really want to compete. Because those last 15 minutes with fans, you can get through because you have fans yelling at you the whole time, and it really gets you going. But with absolutely nothing, and you can hear every little bit of people talking and your coach is yelling, it's hard to get through those last 15 minutes. And so you got to see who was really competitive and who wasn't.
Well, we know in this country there certainly is no home field like what is now Lumen Field when the Sounders, Cristian, have a home game. And I'm wondering, pre-pandemic, how much energy did you feel like you guys, and look, your opposition did as well, get energized by those fans? And then once you played without them, did your thought process change on that at all?
Well, I think we saw a drop off in the amount of running, the intensity, and maybe it had to do with us trying to get back into shape, into game fitness because of the COVID break that we had. But when it was pre-COVID, like Kelyn said, those last 15 minutes, it was a breeze. You can get through it no problem, and the intensity remained really high. And now, you see those 15 minutes where players will drop off, players will cheat a little bit more, the game will get stretched a little bit more. So pre-COVID, you can see how electrifying Lumen Field was for sure.
Last question, just a quick response from each of you. What do you think makes soccer so special in this state of Washington? We'll go around. Let's start with Samantha first.
I think we have some great fans, and I think just the soccer community in general, outside of like the players, just like the people who come out to the games and the supporters, just create a really cool environment. It's always been fun. I've been a fan going to Sounders games and Reign games, and so I'm excited to be on the other side of it now. But yeah, I think the atmosphere that the fans create is pretty special.
Sorry, did you say my name? It keeps going in and out. I don't know if you're talking to me, I can't hear.
Tom, I think you're muted. Yeah.
Katherine?
Now you're back. Well, sort of. Fading
Yes.
in and out.
I did. That's okay. Yes, Katherine. Yeah. What do you think makes soccer in this state so special? Enough of you. Great spending this time with the five of you tonight. Wish you the best in your upcoming seasons. And with that, we'll hand it back off to Frank.
So to the panelists and moderator, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking part in this community event. I'm sure all the attendees loved it as well. We want to thank the audience for being supportive of us and Washington Legends. And a big thank you to Washington Youth Soccer for their generous sponsorship of the event, including the technology. And then lastly, the committed volunteers on the board that helped put this together. We have one ask of our attendees. If anybody would be so motivated, we'd appreciate it if they consider making a donation on our website. Please check out our Soccer History Museum and stay tuned for future presentations from Washington Legends. Good night, everybody. Ciao.